Hi, good morning. We're back. Welcome to the Coffee Table Talks. Today we're talking with Tom Somerville. So everybody say hi, Tom.
Hi, Tom.
Hi, everyone.
I feel like we're starting up some sort of addiction crisis meeting.
I, too, am a recovering analyst.
Which is so horrible. Look, Kat, what's up? Bestie time. So if you guys don't know, go check out the chat we did with Kat. I feel like Kat.
I have to touch the cat because I'm a horrible everything.
Love it. I had a very serious crisis this morning. It has happened.
Oh,
I ran out of coffee.
Good.
Oh,
I did.
Get some tea. Get some tea.
I don't understand the words that are coming out of your mouth right now, Levy. For those who don't know, Levy heavily volunteers with me over at the Innocent Lives Foundation. So you should go check out all the things because I didn't put a trigger warning ahead of this. So it could be upsetting for some people. Fair warning. But it is a wonderful organization of cybersecurity professionals that volunteer and dedicate their time to stopping some awful atrocities that happen to kids. So,
and it's not just cybersecurity professionals, just awesome people across the board.
Yeah, just awesome people. I automatically associate them with cybersecurity people because of all of the wizardry.
There's a lot of wizards in there for sure, but we also have some fantastic people who do all sorts of things. My mod for our streams is in chat right now. He's also a cyber whiz, but still does other cool things.
Nice. So. Oh, hey, Nick, what's up? And hi, David. How are you? Joining me.
It's Jonathan.
So Levy's going to be more of a permanent fixture because they're way better. They're way better at not getting distracted by blinky lights because I do.
I just distract everyone else. That's how this works.
Yeah,
I don't get distracted. I distract you, and that makes me always on point.
Yeah. And then, as always, my very shiny co-host, Will McCullen, he's the program manager for the IT Center for Excellence at PIMA Community College.
You can't say that.
It's only taken me over a year. I don't have to read it off of a side note anymore. I'm so glad. Or screw it up repeatedly. So also very excited. Oh, good. I have that tab muted. So anyway, I was like, dang it. So yeah, the coffee crisis of this morning. So I took Joshua, it's his birthday. It's his birthday this week. It was yesterday. And I surprised him for a Christmas/birthday. And I feel so bad for people that have birthdays close to Christmas because everybody does this. I did it too. I do it to him constantly.
Yeah,
I joined the gift together. You know what I mean? I did the thing. I did the cheat. So we went to a comic con in our local area, and I got the best coffee cup. And I was like, oh, live stream on Friday, first one of the year. I'm gonna have the awesomest coffee cup ever because it's a Dalek. And it's full of energy drink, not coffee. It's cheating. I cheated. Just so I could use my cup.
Well, you're still getting caffeine, so we don't have to talk to you like, hello, Rachel.
There is that. Since I'm now a permanent figure, I need you guys to understand that I don't understand pop culture and have seen only one Star Wars movie, and that was because I was paid to watch it. And so I know nothing.
So this is already apparent because Daleks are not part of the Star Wars
family. I don't know anything. I know nothing, but that immediately looked like a Star Wars thingy, so I don't know anything.
So you know what? That's fine. There's no problem with that. If it was just me and you chit-chatting to the side, I'd probably give you a lot of crap about not knowing.
Later, I know, but this is an excellent time to say that if anybody would like to rectify this and pay me to watch movies, the money goes to the Foundation.
No, wait.
It is it's an actual fundraiser that's
It's
going
an actual fundraiser.
That
Star Wars
Yep.
for money too.
if people, because people get really mad at me. So if people would like to donate to the Instant Lives Foundation to make me watch movies, I will do it. And I will live tweet the entire movie or TV show. And now I do actually kind of feel bad because I have watched Doctor Who, but I couldn't actually see your coffee cup. And it looked like the little robot, the little silver
What?
one from Star Wars.
The what?
Oh,
the little
shit.
silver one from Star Wars?
Yeah.
Are you
RPG2.
talking about
I'll do this, okay? I don't care about Star Wars.
Hey,
Don't worry.
Hey.
I'm trying to maintain the safe place that I would like to guarantee to you, Levy, but it's starting to fade. Okay.
If I rile people up, I get more people interested in paying for me to watch movies and giving ILF money.
I think I'm having a panic attack. It's gonna be fine. We should eventually let Tom ramble for just a little while.
Oh,
I just
me?
wanted to talk about a
Yes.
fundraiser.
Oh my god. So okay. So let me let everybody know. I met Tom. No, I was not at all stalking you previously. That wasn't a thing. I met Tom officially at GRRcon last year, October. It was October this year. When Josh was actually finally able to go with me. We had so much fun, and we did the volunteering thing. And I recommend that everyone do the volunteering thing. You should always do that.
They actually couldn't record this year because they didn't have enough volunteers. So,
So Tom had a very good presentation. It's out there on your GitHub, which I probably should have grabbed from you. I have it bookmarked. Hang on, but go check it out. Very good, awesome things. Tom built some magical wizardry stuff, and he was like, "I bet more people would find this useful." And we were like, "You bet we do." So anyway, do you have any?
Actually, it's funny because Kat, who I saw in the live stream, was one of the people who was like, "You need to turn this into a talk." I'm like, no one cares about this. And she was one of the people that actually convinced me to do it. So,
Oh my
I
gosh.
love that. So that's great. Small world.
Yes. That's even more reasons to love Kat. And if you are not pumping up and gassing up your fellow InfoSec professionals, make it a thing that you do like once a week, at least. Okay. Don't be miserly. Don't be all Scroogey about it. Like, be a super support. And then you'll get to it's such a good feeling whenever you get to watch other people who are amazing share all of the inner lights with everybody else, and then they also see how shiny they are. Anyway, I'm gonna get all emotional. It's such a, I love it. Kat says dream team. I don't know if it's, oh yeah, no, it shows up over here too. I am 100% so glad as well, because then I was like, Tom, we gonna be friends. All right.
yeah.
I do have to share a small funny thing, and I'm so sad to my internal organization's security team member if I am about to out them with their name and things. I'm kind of nervous about saying it, but it is funny. So Tom, wait, that Tom, right? Tom Somerville. Okay. So there is another Tom that has a very similar name within my organization that as I was going through and like looking at all the, the roster of names and like, oh, I'm going to chat with people, I saw his name, got super stoked, and immediately approached him in our like official security team channels and was like, oh my God, why didn't you tell me you were here? What's up, fam? And he was like, wow, this is very excitable energy. I feel like I'm not the person you think I am. And I was like, oh. Like, it was so bad, you guys. I was very embarrassed. But he was very cool. He was like, I hope I'm as awesome as the one that you know already. And I was like, you're already more awesome just because you didn't make this more awkward than I already made it. Yeah. So you have a doppelganger, just so you know.
No, you should go to GRRcon.
You should go to GRRcon.
I'll see him at GRRcon this year.
You guys could dress up as twinsies. It'd be adorable. But anywho, so how's everybody's break? Man, it seems like it's been forever. It's been forever.
It was a break.
It's going great. We had first day of classes yesterday, so my mind is like, I'm. But anyhow, so Tom.
Yes.
Tell us about your stuff and what you're doing.
So the talk I put together was actually about some work that I did at my previous employer, and we just kind of like finished a complete overhaul of our entire Infosec program.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, they like pulled and replaced almost all of their tooling. A much larger team. They split the team up into multiple teams. So instead of one team of everyone does everything, it was multiple teams. This team focuses on GRC. This person focuses on design architecture. This is our SOC. And so after many millions of dollars and a couple of years, we came to a close of our 3-year vision, right? Like, this is our 3-year plan. We implemented it. We're like, cool. How well did we do? And also, like, what do we do next, right? And so one of the things that I had accidentally fallen into at 2 employers back was offensive security testing. And, from talking with people in the industry as well as previous jobs, like 10 years ago, the general cycle would be you do work, you manage your SOC, you respond to alerts, you make sure compliance and policy is being followed. You get a pen test at the end of the year with your excess budget, and they tear you apart, and you have like a year's worth of work that drives your next year's budget. And it's just such a long, it's such a long cycle. It's not, and I don't think it's a good cycle, right? Because like what threat actors do and what pen testers do are often, there's some intersection, but there's a lot of non-intersection. And so I really wanted to do some offensive security testing, basically, spend some time actually performing the activity that we were expecting to catch with all of the work that we just implemented. So, but HR came back and said we couldn't hire, 3 people to have dedicated cyber threat intelligence, dedicated threat hunters, dedicated offensive security people. But we still wanted to do it. I had a smart manager, and he saw the value in it. And he's like, well, how can we do it? Maybe if we can't do it full time, how can we do it part time? And so I kind of came up with a program as how to do everything light, and like kind of squeeze that into like a week. And so the whole life cycle of intelligence, threat actor emulation, threat hunting, as well as the whole reporting and replacement of the reporting and resolution of all your findings. So I squeezed that into a week, and my talk was basically on that. So it was good. I think it's worth taking a look, the slide deck at least, because I believe that what we developed is super useful to most organizations. I don't have statistics on this, but if I was to guess, the slide deck that Levi is in my GitHub. So you should get the full slide deck. And the speaker notes are extensive. So you could basically read the speaker notes, and that's my talk. So if you don't find a recording, I think I gave it at GRIMMCon in December. And so it should, if you keep an eye on the GRIMM YouTube channel, it should be up here soon, because that was just after Christmas. Or just before Christmas.
Awesome.
So anyways, what was I talking about?
So to make sure I got this straight, so you're working hard to protect your whole organization, And so then you say, okay, that's all fine and dandy, but let's take the initiative. Let's put it into, can we break what we just did? Right. Which is one of the invaluable things that we try to get across here at PIMA Community College, is to say to the students, with cops, you don't train with skirt guns. So, if you're going to have folks that are going to be industry info professionals, you kind of have to have an idea of how to actually go and do the attack.
Can I ask a question real quick? Did anybody else get the visual image of like a police academy style?
I literally did this really.
I did. I thought it would be cute.
Pew.
Also, no, you're not allowed to ask questions.
Pew pew. Okay, sorry.
So well, actually, twofold, because there's an aspect of can we break it, which is good because that will room for improvement, right? But there's also an aspect of, well, what do the threat actors we care about actually do, right? And so we actually were very happy when we did our threat actor emulation and we caught it. And so we either prevented it or we detected it, and our analysts responded to it in a timely manner that we would, be content with the response time and cleanup. And so even though we didn't break it, we validated our implementation, and we all sleep a little easier at night knowing that, hey, if that happens, which has been happening to a lot of people in the last 6 months, we'll be okay, we think. we have more than we wrote the rule that theoretically should detect it, but until that activity actually happens in our environment, we won't know for sure. I don't know. I've got really fat fingers, right? And when I send those rules or those configs to my other engineers to check it, I don't know what's on their plate at that time. They could be really stretched thin and tired, or their cat might have jumped on their keyboard at the time and destroyed everything, and they just wanted to get everything solved and back to normal quickly.
Or their wolf. I have a wolf. You haven't met her yet. You will by the end, I'm sure.
So yeah, it's I think it's really good because and you don't have to be a badass red teamer to do this either. You just have to know how to read, because interestingly enough, crazy good analysts write very detailed reports on exactly what happened, how it happened, in what order, and what technology was in play that they executed this in. And you just have to recreate what they did. You don't have to come up with original ideas and use tooling that doesn't exist yet, or you just redo, because the goal is will we catch or detect activity that we know bad people use, bad threat actors use, right? And so I spend a couple days just recreating what someone else thought of, and then dropping that in a lab environment, making sure it's defanged enough that I can, right? Some people really like emulating to the T. Don't emulate the end payload.
Wait, are you telling me I should not send it to the original command and control?
Yeah, right. There's a line.
I would think we do that.
So you think it's common sense? I actually worked with an individual who
it's never common sense.
He had a server hosted permanently on internal infrastructure, and it had live malware on it, real world malware. And he would be like, well, let's go see if this works. And from whatever he was working on, he'd just download and execute it in production. Right? This was a different time. This was like a decade ago.
Yesterday? I'm sorry.
I think we've realized, I don't know. I don't. He probably would still do it.
Maybe he realized. I don't know.
But that to me, I work in Infosec. I'm kind of a risk-adverse individual, and that's a little too risky for me. So I always, I always write up a quick little program for my own payload. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. In my talk, I just used an application that launched calc.exe, which we're all familiar with the POC of opening calc. So,
yeah, well, you bring up a really good point that a good part of doing that, right, is the business continuity planning, which means the business continues.
I guess that's important. Yeah.
Yeah, the confidence in his abilities to.
So I have a question for you. 2. Number 1, what is the extent at which you've utilized this? Like what different types of attacks? You mentioned in your talk, you wrote a little quick program. Have you used this for like social engineering attacks, phishing, etc.?
So, no, we had a dedicated. We had an individual that was focused on employee education, security awareness training, which involved, phishing and social engineering employees. Mine was purely technical. We did the assumed click. I didn't have to try and trick anybody, right? I would drop whatever the payload was that would be a part of a phishing email or a drop.
Like skipping the stage.
I just copy it over to the target. We assume they're going to fall for that. So I want to know what happens after that. We had somebody else who really enjoyed that, and they did a good job at that. So I did, okay, what happens if what they clicked is not a phishing site or, and so our extent was really, we determined, we did like a little market analysis. Well, how would threat actors categorize us as an industry sector? We identified a short list of threat actors that target that sector. And then I spent my time each week. We fit this whole life cycle into a week, but an individual doesn't have to do it in a week. If they're crazy good, do it in 3 days. If you're a little slower, when we first started this, it would take me 2 weeks. And then I just got better at it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of code reuse. So once I know how to do one thing, right?
Copy and paste will save your life, man.
There's a lot of TTPs shared between actors.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I remember I did something very similar to this. So I just go look at that file that I chucked all the screenshots and the code, the script files into, and I would just copy and paste blocks out and just modify them online. So it got faster. But so I would and each week I would pick one of those individuals and one of those threat actors that would target us. We try to target individuals that haven't gotten attention from us in a while. And we would target actors that we know have been active recently being, within the last 6 to 12 months. And so I would just read, we'd also try and target attack chains that we haven't tested before. So since we don't have a full-time team doing this, we could retest certain TTPs, certain attack chains that we've tested before, and there is value in that. But I just tested this 4 months ago, and there's the list of items we've tested is much shorter than the list of items yet to be tested. So we focus on the yet to be tested because we know we'll at least prevent or detect a good portion of that. So but you should retest periodically to validate that your resolution efforts are effective.
Here's kind of where my second question comes in, because definitely if you've got a limited team, you've got limited resources, it's going to take a while. So my next question is somewhat off topic. I have a background in creating machine learning tools. I have fun. I do it on the side. Have you guys ever thought about taking what you're learning and teaching a tool to do those periodic tests to follow this.
So it's funny you say that. I do believe my current employer actually spun off a company that does something very similar to that. So I don't know if anyone knows of Scythe, but it automates a lot of the attack chain. It does threat actor emulation, and it assists your red team, and it really automates a lot of the process. I wouldn't say it completely eliminates the need for a human to do offensive security testing, but it will greatly augment them and really reduce the amount of time. So, yeah, so it's possible. It's hard to do that, right? Like, that's no small feat to do it well. And I think so. My target audience with my talk was the company that has like a team of 5 people, right? And I don't think a team of 5 people is going to embark down that path. I think a larger organization, you know, like, hey, we have 60 or 100 individuals, definitely could. And, you know, they're probably also at that point having a dedicated red team. They probably even have a dedicated engineer for their red team infrastructure also. I don't know.
The HR issue.
Yeah,
they also probably have more data they could feed into something like that than a smaller team of 5.
Yeah, so like the smaller team of like 5 or 6 people was really my focus as far as like, how can you do this without having to drop millions and without having to hire bunches of people. And so it was basically just all you need is time. I used all open threat intelligence. You know, it's it's a time thing because a lot of times in those smaller teams, you're spending a significant amount of your time closing out what you know are going to be false positives anyways. We all know those like dozens of rules that trigger hundreds of times a day, and you still have to look at them. You still have to verify that it's not
one day they're going to
be a haystack.
There's going to be that one day when it's a legitimate attack that every other one is a false positive.
Yeah. So like maybe instead of spending some of that time, you know, being bored and doing what we would all probably agree is less productive work, spend some time doing this.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my thought.
Well, you bring up a real interesting point there in that you have a unique perspective because you've kind of come through this. If you were looking at some others that have been in your same position and are trying to work in their company to get the awareness up the food chain to say, hey, we really need to do this. This is worthwhile. What would be some of the advice that you would give them to help pave that ground, to make that way?
Yeah, actually, we use this for that purpose, right? Because so when we finished, we always had reporting at the end of this, right? I always wrote a little like 2-page report to management, and they would send that up to their management, and it kind of be like, hey, we spent money and time on this tool implementation or like redesigning this environment, and when we emulated attacks, these things caught it, prevented it, or detected it. Our logging infrastructure and our SIM infrastructure and our time spent training our SOC analysts means that everything worked according to plan. You can be sure that was money well spent. And that gives upper management confidence that when you go to them for future budget to do other additional things, that they know it's going to be money well spent. It can also identify gaps. We had plenty of things where it's like, yeah, we're completely blind here, and none of our existing tooling is going to solve it. We need this much time to do it. And because they know other things were accurately scoped and validated, they would be like, okay, that's not a ridiculous time estimate. You know, they're not coming to me just blowing smoke asking for more money. They need another FTE to, you know, take some of the workload off to open up that time. And so it justifies employee expenses, budget expenses, tooling purchases, or maybe even consulting time with third-party people. And so we actually found that the first couple of times we did it, like it was not me like heads down for like 2 weeks doing nothing but this. It was me spending a half day here, got to go do some other work, spending, you know, two-thirds of a day here, then go do some other work over the course of 2 weeks. But it got easier for management and myself to justify the heads down time on this. And it also got easier to convince management of getting project time and resolution. So,
and they keep was the regular communication, right?
Yeah, and also like when we shared these reports with the management of other IT teams, it was very much like they immediately made time available, right? It's like when you get popped in a pen test and, you know, they're like, oh yeah, they got DA within 2 hours. They take that immediate attack chain very seriously. This is it's like a smaller version of that. We're like, hey, this is not just random stuff that hypothetically could happen. This is like real world stuff that threat actors performed on this company 2 months ago, right? We don't want to be this company. We don't want to be that company next month. And look, we emulated it. It's not 100% identical, but we know we'll fall to it. And they open up engineering time on their teams to help us close those gaps a lot easier. So it's really good. It was effective. I think it's a good program, although it takes time. And that's the hard part, is that until you start doing it, you don't actually realize how valuable it is. But you can't realize how valuable it is. You don't get those benefits until you start doing it. So you just kind of have to take a leap of faith. But like, what is, you know, 80 hours of work for one of your 6 people on your team out of the year to at least give it a try? I think that's one of the cheaper cost benefit gambles that management has to make. So
very cool.
We have questions. Question time. So Kat has questions for you, Tom.
Okay.
Number one, what is the most effective metrics from this procedure?
The most effective metrics. As far as measurable KPIs, I think we didn't, hard to say because we didn't like measure a metric that's like was a number and that number goes up. What we measured was like effectiveness of our tooling deployment. So when we performed a threat actor emulation, right, it wasn't just done on one box. It was done in different network segments, different boxes on different network segments. And we could identify if we received all the information of that activity that we would expect to see. So all of the logging would come in, and then we would be like, hey, we're good in these like 8 network segments, but for some reason we don't have logs from the execution on this host. We found that a lot, right? Where we would implement config changes and there would be some weird thing. And it was different every time too, right? Like, cause that's why you can't, there'd be some weird thing where like this one box, so then we would go and we would more thoroughly test and run that in more boxes in that environment. And it would be like, oh, it's just this one server, or it's just these servers running this service. That's the issue. So those were actually our most valuable, is where we thought we had 100% visibility into our endpoints in our network, and we didn't. And this is actually what identified it, right? Because like when you query and you're looking through like 40,000 endpoints and you're like, yeah, you know, 2 million logs in the last hour sounds about right. But what you don't realize is that you're missing 10. And it's all in that one segment. And so that was our most valuable metric. We did the whole MITRE whack-a-mole thing, which was measurable, like what TTPs can we confidently detect versus which TTPs can we confidently prevent. What items were our SOC analysts able to identify as true positive in a reasonable amount of time, and how quickly were they able to resolve that? We looked at that too, but we looked at that for all of our tickets already. So while those were useful measurements, they were already being measured in other aspects. So I think the identifying how effective our implementation was probably our most valuable metric. Yeah.
So before we got started, you were giving some really kind of cool insight about, right, I'm working at a community college, so I always have the viewpoint of the student. How do you get into this kind of thing? What do you need to be able to do
this
fun
interesting
stuff?
What do you need and what do you need are two different questions. What do you need is apparently a PhD with 14 certs and 5 years of experience, and then you can get a junior SOC analyst role. It seems to be the case. But it's not. I got lucky, and my first management in InfoSec happened to, he was that guy that would drop malware in production to test to see if he implemented it right. He had very strong opinions, and I've kind of absorbed those opinions, is that what you need is the desire and the aptitude. And then you can do it. The issue is convincing HR that that's the case. Or to, convincing. He also introduced me to this concept of checkbox security. And I have learned that it's very true that there's two very different opinions of InfoSec out there. There's people who think that they just need to check the boxes and pass compliance. And then there's people who think they actually need to prevent and detect malicious activity. And those two things, if you have your end goal as I need to make sure I pass my audits versus I need to prevent malicious activity, you end up diverging on two very different roads. And I feel that the checkbox security type of InfoSec is the type of InfoSec that ends up doing you need 5 years of experience to do a junior SOC analyst role more. But yeah, it's hard to convince, some management in HR that I don't have experience, and that's okay, because I have a desire and a passion to learn this, and I can. So that what you need is aptitude and desire. What you actually have to do, unfortunately, is different than just, expressing that. You have to prove that, get lucky that you find those individuals that are willing to hire for that. And so, we were talking about how my internship, I really wanted to get an InfoSec internship, and 12 years ago, they were not as common as they are today. And I just couldn't find one. So eventually I just pestered this guy relentlessly. And I'm like, hey man, did you hear back from HR yet if you can get an intern? And they're like, oh, they finally, after, weeks of doing that, they're like, oh yeah, we don't have a budget. I'm like, oh, that's okay. I'll just show up. If you're willing to let me sit next to you and teach me everything, that's all I want to know. Right?
Just say a word to me every 5 hours. It's fine.
And so eventually they're like, okay. Right? They're like, just come on in. And so they were, and I got an unpaid internship. Thankfully, that experience was a positive one for them and the company. And then I was the only unpaid intern that they ever had for Infosec, and then the next one was paid, and they've been paid ever since. But you got to do that. Unfortunately, sometimes you have to do that, and that really sucks, because while it might be possible for a college kid to live, in poverty for 6 months, it's not as attainable for an adult with, a partner and children
Yeah.
who need to be warm and eat.
Important sometimes. Sometimes it's important.
Right? Like, and so, yeah, I do think, though, that the pipeline for college-aged kids has become a lot better since when I was entering the industry in 2010. And so, but I do feel like the pipeline for adults is just as horrible and non-existent as it's ever been, right? Like how do you convince HR that an individual who's been working at McDonald's for the last 8 years, like full time, is able to be a SOC analyst or a junior engineer, right? Like when they say like, oh yeah, but like, at home, I'm super into like video game hacking, or, I've done everything on Hack the Box, like that. People don't care, but that person works at McDonald's and they can't afford a $6,500 SANS class.
Yeah, right.
Right. Like, and so it's a hard problem to solve
with those classes half the time.
like businesses can't even afford a $6,500 SANS class for all their employees, let alone. It's a hard problem to solve, and I don't have an answer. I wish I did, other than that I think we as an industry just need to identify those people and take the risk on them, right? Like I could totally understand, like we never had an Infosec program before and now we're starting one. Your first hire probably shouldn't be someone who's never done Infosec before, but your second hire could be. And I do think that if you have more than one individual in your Infosec program and one of those individuals is not completely new to Infosec when you hired them, then you're the problem. Right? Like, yeah, like being a SOC analyst takes a lot of work, right? But it's very teachable. If you and I think that businesses should invest in that. Anyways, sorry. It's one of my things that I get all rangy and soapboxy about.
Anybody who listens to this frequently knows that all of us have at least one of those subjects. So but
yeah,
there are other questions, so I'm going to interrupt you now.
Yes, more questions. Go ahead.
So one is really quick. Let me read it again. Is the program that you've created, or any of the programs, if you have multiple from your talk, available for anybody to look at or utilize?
Yes. So first, I have my slide deck on the GitHub link, which was posted earlier. And the speaker notes are literally word for word what my presentation was. There's charts. There's even all of the files so that you could actually do the whole process. I give you the reports that I read. I give you all of the scripts that I wrote in raw code format so that you can look at it, but as well as compiled in case you don't want to. So that you could actually implement it in your own environment. So you can actually, my talk goes through not only like what we did conceptually, but actually walk you through step by step. The only thing I don't walk you through is how to threat hunt. And the reason I don't do that is because I didn't have enough time to do 2 talks in one. Yeah. But also, I already did the how to threat hunt talk a few years ago, and there's a link to how to threat hunt that talk in the slide deck. So if you go watch 2 of my talks.
Was that your GRRcon 2019 one?
That was my 2018 one. Yeah.
You know, I think Tom may have a friend, Kat, if anybody also wants to pull another.
Yes. So, and also Kat self, you know, she did a very similar talk. Actually, it was so similar that I called her up and I went, "Oh no, Kat, we have the same talk. I have to come up with a new concept." I called her all like a panic, and then she told me more about her talk, and and you're like, okay, we're different enough, but they're very complimentary as far as the subject matter goes.
Well, I mean, you know, there's more than one way to skin a threat. I don't support animal cruelty, and I realize that mid-sentence. My bad.
You realize
so yes,
non-support mid-sentence. That's great.
And I guess like feel free to tweet at me. I have had a Twitter account for over a decade now, and I've never tweeted. But people keep telling me that I should tweet about stuff. So if you tweet at me, maybe that will be the thing that gets me to start.
Honestly, same, Tom. Same.
Like people like keep hitting me up on Twitter, like, hey, he's gonna give this talk. He gets like doing like promo stuff, and then they link to my Twitter account. I'm like, I don't know if that's a good thing for them or a bad thing because they're linked to like an empty. Like, it's perfectly well aged too, right? Like some money. So
yeah, folks, a well-aged Twitter, isn't it?
So, anyways, yeah. So if my goal is that just by watching this one talk, you should have everything you need to know to there should be no questions left as far as what do I need to do, how do I do it, and it should be now just okay, let's give this a try. So that was the goal with my talk, was to like to actually show you what it looks like. And I even showed you my shortcomings in the talk as well. I even mentioned the fact that it's like, yeah, you know, like this isn't ideal, but it's realistic. And so hopefully after you go through the slide deck, you read that talk, or maybe watch it on the GRIMM YouTube channel when they post the GRRcon talks, that you will have you'll feel confident enough that the only thing you need now is some time to actually try it. So
That's
hopefully
awesome.
that's our goal.
That's awesome, dude. You got the heart of an educator. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Actually, both my threat hunting talk as well as my emulation this talk were both of that similar nature, where I actually want to, because I had this issue for the longest time where it's like people keep talking about how they do this stuff, and we use such cool sounding words for everything that everything sounds so neat. And then like you'll learn how to do it and you're like, oh, okay.
That's
your opinion of your heroes just drops.
It's a TV show issue, right? You get this issue all the time. People are like, I want to be a cool hacksaw, like you see on the TV, and then they get to an analyst job. They're like, I hate data. So
yeah, it's like give me 5 more minutes and I'll be in the NSA. Like, no. It really is just bashing your head against the wall until you get it.
Any cool profession is that way too. When I was in forensics, it was the same thing.
Yeah. So, I like to. So actually, all of my talks are my aha moments, essentially, where I thought that thing was unobtainable to me, or that it was many years of education away from my capabilities. And then I had this aha moment. I'm like, man, I could have done that 4 years ago.
Really can.
Like, I had the same thing with coding. And so my 2019 talk was about coding, and like, it's just, they're all like, I just want to show you what the reality of it is, so that you can I want to take away the mysticism behind it, right? Like, because there is kind of this fog, and it's hard to do because the really cool stuff you can't talk about, right? Like a lot of your work that you do where you're like, oh man, this was awesome, but I can't do it because of NDAs or clearance, or I'll get fired because I can't talk about how my company just got completely owned upside down, left, right? Like, And so it's hard to create material where you can see reality without actually going through the real world thing that basically just like throws your employer out to hang in the public eye, right? Like it's hard.
Baby with the bathwater.
So
Yeah.
it sounds like instead of certs, we should be going by the number of dents in the head, right?
Yeah, the gray hairs, right? Like my wife was like, Tom, you're only 27 and you have a lot of gray hair. And I'm like, I know, it's been 6 years of stress. And now it's more.
Really
It's hard to
easy.
see, but it's like 50-50 now.
I'm telling you can go teal real easy at that stage.
Yeah, right. I could just dye it green or something.
Yeah. Why not?
Well, there's always other solutions.
I mean, half of my head is shaved too. You just can't see with the panda hat. So
What
there's
gray
always-
hairs?
What hair? It's all wig.
And okay, so I know it's coming to a close, but the last thing I want to talk about, as far as getting into the industry, but also doing this work, I didn't do this work myself, right? I reached out to a lot of people and pieced it together. And the community is very open to welcoming you as long as you're not an ass. Right? Like,
Bold.
right? Like I've got like 4 mentees and I also have like 3 mentors. Like right? And they're essential. I've got people like I've that first boss that drops live malware in production. Every time I need to make a career choice, I call them up and I say, should I? Pros and cons, help me walk me through this, right? And whenever I'm on a CTF and I'm bashing my head against the wall, right? I've got like 4 people I can ask, like, I just don't understand this technique. And so same thing was with this program. Like, I've never done this before. You've kind of done some aspects of this. I hit them up on Slack or Discord. I called them on the phone. And I talked to them about, this is what I want to do. And give me your advice. And I pieced it together from multiple different people and did it. So go to the professional meetups, go to the cons, right? And it's really, really scary to just walk up to somebody and be like, hi, who are you? What do you do? I'm a nobody. Like, not a lot of people have those guts. I'm a very extroverted person. I barely have those guts.
I do. Personally, I have no F's to give at all. I will walk up to the
Yeah.
I don't care.
So
That's what the hats are for.
there are people that works for, and then there are people that it doesn't work for. So volunteering at these things is the easy in, I would say, because it is antisocial by design, right? If you're volunteering, you're sitting in one location and you're talking with that other volunteer, and it's a little slower of approach, right? But you won't face that scary rejection as frequently, right? Because like, it's true. If you just walk up to a random person and be like, hey, tell me all of everything you do, they're going to go away. Well, one person will be like, oh, okay, cool. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So go to your professional organizations and just sit there and watch the shows a couple times, and then go and thank the presenter and say, thank you, I have a question. And that will be a slow path into getting to know people in the industry. Go to conferences. And if you're a poor college kid and you can't afford it, almost all the conferences have programs for either like support a college kid, or the tickets are 90% off, or right,
Yeah.
like do those. But like, I think knowing people is critical, and it's a small industry. And once you know a couple people, you will very quickly know a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because those people were introduced. You'll ask the 2 people you know, hey, do you know anything about this? And they'll say, I don't, but I know 2 other people who do.
Yes.
Let me get you their email.
I'm the left.
And then your career will go crazy high. And if you're not in Infosec currently, right?
What? Me? Am I the poster child for go make friends I think so. I feel like
But if you're not in InfoSec, you can still go. Almost all of these professional organizations are open to the public, right? Like you don't have to be an InfoSec, just have to be interested in the content. And that's how I got my job, all right? My first intro into InfoSec, I was a college kid that knew nothing, never worked in InfoSec. The only IT I've ever worked was help desk over the summers. And I just pestered some people until they let me get an internship. And if you got a full career, that might not be an option, but you could just say, let me know if you hear someone willing to take a risk on someone very green. It might take a year or 18 months and it might take 12 job applications and rejections, but that's how you get it. And it's scary. So
just to jump on that, there's one thing I tell a lot of people, because I occasionally will teach like Python or some other language or something. And I always tell people you have to have a portfolio. And most people think about that for like art, but your GitHub account, all sorts of accounts, everything's a portfolio. So your resume is great. If I worked for like 8 years full time at McDonald's, but I have a GitHub account that I've added fantastic work to every day during those 8 years, and you can see progression, and it's tools that people in the industry are looking at or working on, etc. That should elevate my resume.
Yeah,
in a way that HR doesn't understand, but the hired people should.
I started by just recreating things that already existed. You don't have to have an original idea, right? You don't even have to like create a copy of a fully fledged tool. Just try and do one thing of this tool. You don't even have to do it as good, but right, like people just want to see that you are passionate about it and that you're capable of doing it.
And it doesn't have to immediately be InfoSec. Like every language I've ever learned, we start with a hangman game, because it teaches you every function you need to know of the base language, and then you can apply those to more technical things. It's very cool.
Yeah, and I actually left InfoSec after my first InfoSec job, which is an interesting path. I was talking with an individual that I thought was very good, and his current position and prestige, I gambled and I got lucky that he was good. And he gave me some advice that says, if you want to be good at your job, right, then stay in InfoSec. He's like, if you want to really understand the inner workings of everything you do, and like be great at everything you touch, go work in consulting, right? Because they'll just chuck you into a dumpster fire, and you'll touch every piece of technology and have to figure out how to make things work with like no money, but you're going to understand how things work a ton, right? Like, so you don't have to go straight into InfoSec. You could go into IT consulting and just get some general well-rounded knowledge before you jump into InfoSec. It'll make it easier too, I think, right? It's easier to hire someone who's from like an IT consultant than it is, from someone who, stocks shelves at the grocery store. It's not that it's impossible, but, it could be an intermediary step. But I also know people that are amazingly great that just went straight into InfoSec, and they just are so passionate about it that they're like, I've identified something I don't know. And although the scope of my job, right, isn't going to allow me to have the time and budget to focus on this, they end up going home and working, 80-hour weeks, which is very unhealthy. And the individual is here and they know exactly who I'm talking about. So there's multiple different ways. Try to figure it out. But it's possible. If you've got the aptitude and the desire, meet the people. Yep.
I love it. Good. I don't even have to say stuff. You guys, this has been so fun. This has been so fun. Like, one, thank you. Thank you so much, Tom, for coming to hang out.
No problem.
And talking about just all the things that you've been up to and Levy, thank you. I love you. You're the best. You're coming back all the time. That's gonna happen now.
It's been established.
It was really helpful. Like I could actually go and look at things in chat and like accurately pull questions up whenever the timing was right. It was like, wow, this is awesome.
This is where I live now. Every Friday you'll see me here with a different hat.
Perfect. If you have questions about anything in my talk, once you review it,
tweet him.
You can tweet at me or you can DM me on LinkedIn or something. That's fine. Yeah, but go try offsec in your environment. It's super valuable. You don't have to have a dedicated team. You don't have to do it full time. Just do a tiny little thing, and then you can do a little less or a little more the next time. Just do whatever you can do, and then do it multiple times and tweak it over time. So, yeah. Oh, actually, I think I have the video file.
You do.
I have the video file in my GitHub.
Yeah.
I forgot to put that there. There you go. There's a video, so you can actually watch me give the talk.
I was trying to find it during this too. Awesome.
Yeah. That's very cool. Thank you, Kat. We love you.
Yeah.
And thank you,
and be nice to those people at the professional organizations and stuff. Like when you're done at the meetups, you're going to see these people that will like float around the corners for like 2 minutes. All by themselves, looking exactly like that. and then they'll nope out, right? Don't go to your friends first. Jump over to that person and be like, hey, I haven't seen you here before. Who are you? Your friends will walk over to you. That's going to be the next rock star. So be nice to them.
Yes. And like, that's part of just being inclusive, right? I'm sure everybody's heard diversity and inclusion. Part of being inclusive is finding those folks that are hanging out around the corner, right? And grabbing them before they do nope out, because
a lot of times you only get one chance. A lot of times if that doesn't happen their first time there, they're not coming back, right? Like,
yeah, it is.
If they're exceptionally brave, they'll do it twice.
Yeah.
And then they'll never come back. So yeah, like it's important because we are at a shortage of talent, right? We don't have enough people. So, and if you're a manager, make sure you have at least one person on your team that was not an Infosec before you hired them, right? Like ultimately you're the one that fixes the problem, right? Like I am not in a hiring position, right? I can preach it, I can teach it, and I can be a friend, but until hiring managers actually start hiring those people and convincing their HR that those are the people they want, then the problem won't go away. So do it.
Thank you.
I agree. So guys, we are up and running again for 2022. Yay, first episode. Woohoo! We did stuff. Look at that. I'm so proud of us. But for next week's, the notification, and I send lots of invites out for everybody to jump on board with it somewhere between Monday and Wednesday of every week. Okay. Because this is a non-sponsored podcast. We all show up just because we love each other and we love you too.
Like everyone, viewers, members.
So I squeeze it in. As you can tell, I don't know if anybody noticed the doggy themed lampshade that I have laying on the couch today. But poor Tortor, he got a bad reaction to some new food that we learned our lesson on, and was like gnawing at his hindquarter so bad, and now he's a lampshade. Poor baby.
That is Victorian.
If you've never had a dog that's wearing a cone, by the way, it's okay. You shouldn't laugh, but it's so bad. He's run into everything, and like just knocked stuff clean over, me included, the hubs also, and my small children, with no qualms about it. It's pretty awesome. But anyway, to watch for the announcement for next week's chat, here again, normally on Fridays, normally kind of the same bat time, same bat channel. Feel free to follow the Secure Nation channel if you prefer to use LinkedIn. If you prefer the YouTube, you can go there. The human API, that's moi. And be a human API, you guys. Go connect people to other people and be the back end collaboration creator. Okay. Look how awesome Tom is. Right? Tom, you're so shy on social media. Probably because you're in Infosec and very leery of social media platforms.
I can't trust anyone here.
Probably not.
I mean, but that's why, like, how many people have I met on social media platforms that are in Infosec in the community and brought onto like the coffee table talks and enjoyed, you know, their conversation. I only found Tom because I went to a conference and I volunteered.
He just walked right up to me and be like, "Hey,
You will be on my thing."
I'm all for it. I do it too. I'm more on the extroverted side than I am introverted, so it's but it is scary to go walk up to complete strangers and say, "I want to be your friend." Like,
you are part of my group now. Thank you.
it is. Yeah, right.
Same with you as mine.
We know each other now.
Stranger danger is irrelevant. We are no longer strangers.
That's right.
So I want to thank everybody again in the chat for participating. It's I mean, we could sit here just the four of us and have a lot of fun, but it's your participation that makes it super fun and cool, even beyond what we're capable of doing between our group. We'll see you next week. We love you so much. You guys have a beautiful and safe weekend. I think a lot of people are going to be enjoying the extra long weekend. I don't know. Anybody? Yes, I am. I'm going to fall down. It's going to happen. It is. So we will see you next week. Thank you for grabbing a cup and circling up today. Mwah!
Drink tea. Bye.